Hey guys, I'll be up. I just need to sort some things and I'll be with you in a second. I'm not sure why this isn't working. Okay, great. Okay. Computer is malfunctioning. Right, it's better now. I hope it works. Okay, let's see if it works. So it's not working. I'm not sure why it isn't working. Okay, perfect. Finally, let's just check if this works. Really sorry guys, we'll be starting in another 1 minute. I just need to check something real quick. Okay, I think it's working now. Perfect. Okay, so today's video will be on the dark personality, the dark side of narcissistic personality, the dark side of personality. So the main topic today will be on this book, which I will be reviewing to my patrons in the next few weeks. But basically today I'll be reviewing, I will be giving a review of this book, a very kind of superficial review. because I haven't read it completely yet. So this is what today's video will be about: the dark side of personality, science and practice in social personality and clinical psychology. So before we start with that, I'm going to talk real quick on this question that I posted on Quora with a really good answer that I wanted to share. So this answer it's kind of a very comprehensive description of narcissism, covert narcissism especially, which is very important for us to the signs of it is very important for us to really get a hold of. So that's why I want to share this first. So let's go with this quickly. Where is the right? It's this one. So Ginny Mary Stanbro, I'm sorry, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. So if you want to follow him, you can, because I think survived a malignant narcissist. So I think this is really a really good question. I mean, a really good answer. So if you want to follow him, please do. But also, if you want to follow me, I'm Dharmika Na, narcissistic abuse life coach. If you want to follow me, please do. I answer 3 to 4 questions every week on narcissistic abuse, recovery, and immunity. So yeah, Quora is like a great source, by the way. And surviving and thriving is also a great space to go to for narcissistic abuse recovery and immunity. So without further ado, let's start. So the question is, why aren't narcissists arrested or quarantined in a mental health facility? Why isn't this epidemic taken seriously under law enforcement? So Jeannie said, why? Why? One, because the abuse is so insidious as to be completely unseen, even by the professionals. For the primary target, it's like being the frog in a slowly boiling pot of water. The abuse is so imperceptible that you don't know what's happening until it's too late and you've already boiled to death. 2, the whole arc of the abuse is to make the victim appear to be unstable. 3, at the same time that they are abusing their victims, they are manipulating everyone. They are manipulating everyone else around them, brainwashing them into their version of reality, and enlisting many as their army of flying monkeys. Number 4, because of this, they keep each person isolated from the other, so that no one has a complete picture of what's going on. At least of all, their primary target. And number 3 is if someone, sorry, isn't it? That should be 4, but 3. If someone does figure it out, they will deny, deflect, project, and or throw word salad in their face. Number 4. Many people who know what's happening are intimidated by them, and don't want to end up on their bad side, and with good reason. It's like living in the story of Emperor's New Clothes and being in the Twilight Zone. Further, the well-versed narcissist knows just how far they can push the boundary without crossing the thin line between what's legal and what's not. So that's like the gold statement that I would say. They know just where the line is, and they know just how to violate someone without crossing the legal line, so to speak. So they can still remain legal while abusing someone. And he continued by saying, what can be illegal is the behaviors one chooses to exhibit, and narcissists understand this all too well. So I think he's trying to say the behaviors one choose to exhibit. Yeah, so what can be illegal is the behaviors one choose to exhibit. So the narcissist doesn't exhibit illegal behavior. They exhibit all of the the mask, the facade, all of the sweet all of the charismatic, kind mask, love bombing and everything, the ideal version of the ideal self that they project, that they assume, so that no one would see what's behind closed doors, no one would see the abuse, no one would see what's happening at the back, when no one's looking. Lastly, and they shroud their abuse very well, by the way, even in front of their victims, they shroud their own abuse very well. And there's like the double slit attack, or the double strike that I always talk about in my YouTube videos if you watch them. The double strike is where they would wear the mask of kindness and whatever ideal persona that you seek for in a human being, whatever thing that you desire from a relationship, they will give you that, while at the same time violating you, either your personal space or your spirit or your self-respect. They will violate you at the same time of giving you whatever your heart desire. So for example, they will assume the father figure or the mother figure, while at the same time violating you, right? It's quite difficult to explain, but it's almost like, for me, it's almost like a spiritual thing. They violated the narcissist violated me spiritually while I was interacting with them. So that's the double strike, right? So the ability to have two realities, to have two personalities overlap each other and interact overlap each other and exist at the same time while they're interacting and engaging with someone. So that allows them to trick you, to deceive their prey, while at the same time allowing them to get their supply, right? To rob you of your dignity, of your self-respect, to devalue you, and to destroy you, basically destroy your sense of self. So this guy said, lastly, if they do cross the line, oftentimes because of the trauma bonding, which is akin to Stockholm syndrome, and emotional, financial, or physical needs, the primary target will not press charges against them. So this is when the target is completely deceived by the narcissist, and they truly believe that the narcissist means no harm, and they are really, they really mean well, or they couldn't help themselves or whatever. And it holds the target back, it holds the victim back from saying anything or speaking their truth, or or what's it called, to say it out, basically press charges against them. So it's almost like they deny it as well. The victim, sometimes I go through this process myself. I denied because I didn't want to accept the reality of things. I didn't want to accept that people can be so horrible and mean and cruel. So it's the trauma, and also they can't find salvation elsewhere, so they need to find salvation with their abuser, which is what the Stockholm syndrome is all about. So yeah, so that's kind of a very comprehensive answer that that shows all of the things of a covert narcissistic abuse, which I find is very, very crucial for this session. So let's move on with this book that I'm talking about, that I was talking about, which is The Dark Personality, The Dark Side of Personality. So give me a second. Right. So a broader view of the dark personality features. Let's go right into it. A considerable body of previous research has examined the links between the links that certain dark personality features have with basic models of personality, such as the Big Five personality dimensions, the Hexaco model, and the interpersonal circumplex. These studies have offered insights into these dark personality features. For example, individuals with high levels of narcissism have been shown to possess low levels of agreeableness and high levels of extraversion, which has led them to being described as disagreeable extroverts. This work has also led to the development of assessment instruments for some dark personality features that are derived from basic personality models, including the 5-factor narcissism inventory. The most ambitious attempt to integrate basic personality dimensions with the darker side of personality may be the model of pathological personality features that was described in Section 3, Emerging Measures Models, in need of further work, of the 5th edition of Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5. So these are all the models that show, the traits of narcissism, of Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. So these are all the models that the measures of the traits and personality of the traits of a dark personality. So let's go back to the article. This model of pathological personality is concerned with maladaptive variants of the big 5 personality dimensions of extraversion, emotional stability, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness. So this 5 is kind of the big, the big giveaway, and how the main features of the main, what do you call that, the baseline, the baseline of the traits against which narcissistic traits is is assessed. So this 5 personality dimensions has led to the development of the personality inventory for the DSM-5, PID-5. The PID-5, or the personality inventory for the DSM-5, is used to capture the following personality dimensions. So these are the interesting bits that I want to talk about. The personality dimensions of detachment, which is characterized by introversion, social isolation, and anhedonia. Negative effects, which concerns the tendency to experience an array of negative emotions. Antagonism, which refers to aggressive tendencies accompanied by assertions of dominance and grandiosity. Disinhibition, which includes impulsivity and sensation seeking. And psychoticism, which involves a disconnection from reality and a tendency for illogical thought patterns. In addition to these higher order dimensions, the PID-5 consists of 25 lower order facets, including callousness, deceitfulness, depressivity, hostility, submissiveness, and withdrawal. Research concerning the PID-5 is clearly still in the earliest stage, but it has already demonstrated considerable potential. So PID-5. So we won't go into the research bit because it's just statistics over there. But let's go into this chapters. So this is just a review, but I will be talking more in depth about it because I'll be reading the book in full, reading the chapters in full, and I will be making live streams for my patrons on Patreon. So if you want to check that out, become a patron, pledge, and there are other benefits as well. There are videos, there are giveaway contests, there are ebooks. The ebook will be up by next week. So yeah, there are a lot of benefits for becoming patron, other than getting this live stream. So please avail yourself of that. So without further ado, let's just go through with this review. So part 1 is on antagonism, and part 1, chapter 1 to 6, examines a range of personality features that share a common core of antagonism and includes elements of the dark tetrad. Chapter 1 is concerned with narcissism, which reflects feelings of grandiosity, vanity, self-absorption and entitlement. The authors consider recent developments in our understanding of narcissism, including contemporary models of pathological narcissism that incorporate both grandiose and vulnerable aspects of narcissism. Chapter 2 focuses on callousness, which is a facet of psychopathy that is characterized by an indifference to the pain and suffering of others, a lack of remorse and guilt for wrongdoing, blunted and emotional responses, and a failure to develop close emotional bonds with others. The author reviews a body of work that has clearly identified callousness as a core feature of psychopathy. Chapter 3 deals with fearless dominance, which is another facet of psychopathy. Fearless dominance includes characteristics such as interpersonal potency, physical fearlessness, risk-taking, and calmness in the face of danger. The authors review evidence suggesting the intriguing possibility that fearless dominance, which seems like a positive quality on the surface, may be detrimental in daily life when it is paired with qualities such as poor impulse control. Chapter 4, that's quite interesting actually. Fearless dominance paired with poor impulse control. Chapter 4 is concerned with Machiavellianism, which reflects a tendency to use strategic behaviors for selfish gains, deceitfulness, manipulation, for example. Deceitfulness and manipulation. The author reviews research that suggests Machiavellianism is linked with characteristics and behaviors such as calculating and strategic, cautious and highly sensitive, such as being calculating and strategic, cautious and highly sensitive to rewards and punishments. So that's Machiavellianism. Chapter 5 reviews sadism, the enjoyment of other people's suffering, which may explain common behaviors such as humiliating others, bullying others, or enjoying depictions of violence in sports, films, or video games. Chapter 6 concerns spitefulness, which is the tendency for individuals to be willing to incur costs to themselves in order to inflict costs on others. The author considers a recent advancement in the study of spitefulness in psychology, as well as the way that fields such as economics and evolutionary biology have included this intriguing construct. Wow. Okay. So part 2 is on disinhibition. Part 2 examines specific aspects of disinhibition. Chapter 7 concerns sensation seeking, which reflects the desire for very novel and complex experiences, as well as the willingness to take various risks, physical and social, to have these experiences. Right, so sensation seeking. Not only do they have the desire for these complex perverted experiences, but also the willingness to take all kinds of risks, whatever it takes, to do whatever it takes to have these perverse, twisted experiences. So that's sensation seeking, the thrill, the great thrill that comes from being perverse, that they derive, so that they can feel something. Because narcissists usually are psychopaths, they usually complain for not having any emotions or feelings. So they need to seek for sensations that can give them that high, or that ability, that what do you call that confirmation that they are actually alive and feeling something. So they need that validation, almost that validation of their emotional functioning, or to feel something, basically. So chapter 8 focuses on urgency, which reflects the tendency to engage in behaviors that may be detrimental to the self or others in response to extreme levels of affect. The author suggests that urgency may be the most clinically relevant of the traits connected to impulsivity, and that and that it deserves as a common transdiagnostic endophenotype for a wide array of negative outcomes and clinical disorders. So urgency, connected to impulsivity. So it's urgent, reflects the tendency to engage in behavior. Right, extreme levels of effect. Chapter 9. Chapter 9 reviews distractibility, which is an interruption in selective attention that is caused by an inability to ignore extraneous stimuli, both from external and internal sources. So although it appears that there are some positive outcomes linked with distractibility, or for example, creativity, the existing evidence clearly indicates that distractibility is associated with a wide array of maladaptive outcomes. So distractibility, an interruption in selective attention that is caused by an inability to ignore extraneous stimuli both from external and internal sources. So this is, I would say this is the narcissist's wild behavior, where they are so impulsive and spontaneous that they kind of they do whatever their instincts tell them to. They are almost slaves to their instincts, in a way that whatever that comes to their mind, they would act upon it. Whatever thought they have, they would consume. They would be consumed by it, and they would, they wouldn't push them away. They would be consumed by it, and they would breed upon it. They would go into a very bitter hit space, and they would kind of ruminate on it, and they would feed their negativity, and they would follow their instincts, and it would be very it's almost demonic in a sense, because they don't filter all of their negativity. They don't filter it. They just follow every form of negativity that they have been that they receive, and they not just follow it, they feed it. They make sure that it grows. So in a sense they're actually giving away their soul. They're giving away their free will for their inner demons. So that's interruption. That's distractibility. They're easily, they easily switch from one headspace to another. They easily switch from one thought process to another, just so that they can get their next supply, just so that they can get their next thrill, their next thrill ride. So part 3 is on rigidity. Part 3 examines rigidity, examines the broad domain of rigidity. Part 3 examines the broad domain of rigidity. Chapter 10 concerns a multidimensional view of perfectionism that includes self-oriented perfectionism, setting unrealistic self-standards, other-oriented perfectionism, setting exacting standards for other people, and socially prescribed perfectionism, the perception that others demand perfection from the self. The perception that others demand perfection from the self. So that's socially prescribed perfectionism. Although the term perfectionist often has positive connotations linked to it, the authors provide compelling evidence that there is an important dark side to perfectionism. Chapter 11 reviews authoritarianism, which includes the tendency to submit to established authorities, a willingness to aggress against those condemned by authorities, and a preference for traditional values. The author reviews evidence that the detrimental consequences of authoritarianism, especially for the lives of others, clearly outweighs its benefits, as well as research concerning how to reduce authoritarianism or mitigate against its negative impacts on others. I'm not sure what's happening with my voice. Sorry, guys. All right, chapter 12 concerns overconfidence, which is defined as an overly positive perception of oneself relative to. Let me just start that over. Chapter 12 concerns overconfidence, which is defined as an overly positive perception of oneself relative to some comparison standards. The author review research findings that suggest overconfidence is a ubiquitous feature of human judgment and decision-making that stems from the desire to think well of oneself, as well as how individuals organize information. Okay. Part 4 is on negative affectivity. Negative affectivity. Part 4 examines the broad domain of negative affectivity. Chapter 13 concerns emotional liability, which is concerned with intense, frequent, and reactive shifts in emotional states. The authors argue that a more complex model of emotional liability is needed because extreme levels of emotional liability, both high and low, are risk factors for some forms of psychopathology, psychopathology, or other negative outcomes. An inability to respond appropriately to emotionally salient environmental cues, for example. Chapter 14 focuses on anxiousness, which refers to a dispositional tendency to experience anxiety-related physiological reactions, for example, increased heart rate, cognitions, for example, worries, and behaviors, for example, avoidance, when confronted with stressful events. The authors suggest that future research focusing on anxiousness rather than higher order constructs such as negative affectivity may shed additional light on the connections between personality and psychopathology. Chapter 15 considers depressive personality features. A dispositional tendency to experience depression-related affect, a dispositional tendency to sorry, I'm really sorry, guys. Chapter 15 considers depressive personality features, a dispositional tendency to experience depression-related affect, cognitions, and behaviors, and anhedonic personality features, a dispositional inability to experience pleasure from activities that are usually found to be pleasurable. They argue that depressive and anhedonic personality features may have more in common They argue that depressive and anhedonic personalities may have more in common than is generally recognized. Both may stem from the same temperamental vulnerability, and that understanding the similarities and the differences between these constructs will have broader benefits for our understanding of dark personality features. Chapter 16 focuses on self-esteem, which is defined as the evaluative aspect of self-knowledge that reflects the extent that individuals like themselves and believes they are competent. The authors review the links that low self-esteem has with the range of outcomes, as well as considering the role that fragile self-esteem plays in moderating the associations that self-esteem levels has with important life outcomes. Okay, so how important fragile self-esteem has on important outcomes. How the important life outcomes that can result from a fragile self-esteem is basically what the author is trying to say. Chapter 17 concerns interpersonal dependency, which is often defined as the tendency to rely on others for help, nurturance, guidance, and protection, even in those situations when autonomous functioning is possible. So the author contends that the core of interpersonal dependency is a helpless self-schema in which the individuals perceive themselves as weak and unable to survive without the guidance and support of others. So this is almost like codependency. So part 5 is on current and future issues. Chapter 18 offers an integration of the chapters included in this volume as well as possible future directions for research concerning dark personality features. So that is all about dark personality features. The chapters on negative affectivity, rigidity, disinhibition, antagonism, and antagonism. So those are part of the dark personality features. I hope you found that insightful, and if you want to buy the book, you can find it in the link in this video. It's called The Dark Side of Personality, Science and Practice in Social Personality and Clinical Psychology. And it is a very comprehensive book on, as I've said, a very comprehensive book on all things personality, the traits of the personality. So it's not more on statistics. It's not all about statistics, and in fact there's not much about statistics at all. It's more on the traits, and is a very comprehensive guide on what it looks like inside the minds of psychopaths, Machiavellians, or people with dark personalities, basically. So if you are interested in understanding how their mind works, then this is probably a good book for you to get, because it talks about all of the features of the dark side of personality. So that's all for the dark side of personality. Let's go to another article that talks about this one. So the dark traits of human personality. Let's go into this one. This is for workplace culture, right? Strive for better work culture and customer safety. So this is in the workplace. So dark personality traits in the workplace. So let's go into page 36. So measure the characteristics of the 6 dark personality traits. So the first one is opportunism, which is a tendency to be deceitful and manipulative, a tendency to possess cynical or negative outlook towards intentions of others. Self-obsession, tendency to possess an inflated sense of self, accompanied by a fragile self-esteem, which makes the person vulnerable to criticism. Insensitivity, inability to understand others' pain, suffering, and perspective. Temperamental, tendency to become angry at the slightest provocation, feeling and engaging in anger-related emotions pervasively and persistently. Impulsiveness, tendency to act on a whim, displaying behavior characterized by little or no forethought, reflection, or consideration of the consequences. Thrill-seeking, the tendency to do activities filled with experiences and unusual sensations perceived as risky but rewarding. Okay, the first one is opportunism. So being opportunistic can yield both good and bad results depending on the means that we are likely to use in order to get hands on the opportunity. So strengths: good at problem solving, proactive, and meet deadlines. Weaknesses: teamwork, so there's no teamwork, routine work, or valuing traditions. Famous opportunities: Henry Ford and Teddy Roosevelt. Known for being innovative, hardworking, self-reliant, and willing to bribe the system. So opportunistic people can be divided into 3 categories. First is ambitious, second is competitive, third is greedy. So ambitious, people in this category have a strong desire for success. They want to get ahead in their career fast and are always on the lookout for more challenging opportunities which will help them achieve their goals as quickly as possible. The bright side of this trait brings out the person who is a smart worker and will always figure out how to get work done. He will also be a quick learner and be persistent in his efforts. He will look at setbacks as opportunity to grow rather than getting disheartened easily. So the dark side of this trait will give rise to an unstable and overpowering personality. Such people will use anyone they can in order to get what they want, and will always be ready to switch jobs as soon as they see a bigger opportunity coming their way. They will always be on the lookout for something better. They will pretend to bond with people who they think can help them achieve their goals, and burn bridges once they cross them. Competitive people have a constant urge to outperform others. They set their standards depending on their peers. Their efforts are invested into being the top performer wherever they are. The bright side of this trait nurtures an employee who will meet all of his or her key result. The bright side of this trait nurtures the employee who will meet all his or her key result areas and strive to perform his or her best. The dark side of this trait will lead to creation of an overperformer who will use hook or crook to stay ahead of others. They will tend to be loud and intimidating, along with being shrewd enough to take credit for someone else's hard work. They will consciously demotivate others in order to deteriorate their performance. They will use any trick to outshine others, even if it means harassing them. Greedy. Number 3 is greedy. People with this trait are headstrong and only involve themselves in activities that provides them with more power and money. They are self-driven and have an ulterior motive behind any interaction they indulge in. Employees with this trait are very demanding. The bright side of this trait will create an employee who strives to succeed and is ready to try any method to achieve higher profits or market share. The employee will be very creative and good at pulling companies out of a tight spot by working hard. The dark side of this trait will fashion an employee who looks at only monetary returns and is ready to get rid of anyone who is not meeting his or her expectations. The person in leadership positions will create a company that grows fast but has bad work culture and hence is not able to sustain its performance. Employees with this dark trait are always looking at quick fixes as they want fast results with minimal effort. So that's greedy, fast results with minimal effort. So opportunistic, snatches opportunity. Ambitious is if you snatch opportunities fast. Low in ambitious will be when you work hard to get access to good opportunities, right? Rather than snatching opportunities, someone who has healthy ambition would work hard to get access to good opportunities. And rather than lying to get ahead, someone with a healthy competitiveness or competency would like to stay ahead by working hard, instead of wanting to work less and get more, get something for nothing, which is the narcissist greedy trait. Someone with healthy desires would demand proportionately to efforts. Okay. Self-obsession. Self-obsession is a trait that exemplifies self-love to the extent where the person is only driven by their own interests, motivations, and happiness. This trait is expected of people who need to be perfectionists, as they are looked upon as role models by many. Strength is perfectionist, self-driven. Weakness is proud, inflexible, oversensitive to criticisms. Famous self-obsessed: Napoleon Bonaparte, Adolf Hitler, and Donald Trump. They get aggressive on facing criticism and love to boast about their greatness. Self-obsession has 3 variants. Number 1 is conceited, number 2 is attention-seeking, and number 3 is dramatizing. So conceited is when people who are conceited hold a very high opinion of themselves. They expect great things from themselves as well as the people around them. The bright side is that an employee who is conceited will look for perfection in his work. They will diligently do quality work. They will set new standards for their organization and always try to implement best practices. The dark side is that conceited employees will not be ready to accept criticism or feedback for their work. They will be stubborn and not ready to mold themselves according to others. Number 2 is attention seeking. People with this trait are always up for doing activities through which they can catch the attention of others. The bright side is that employees with this trait will always present their work in an interesting fashion which will arouse curiosity in others. Right? They're love bombing, idealization, very very charismatic. They're illusionists basically. They have a way about themselves that makes everyone turn their head, right? That makes the whole room turn their head. So they're master illusionists. They're great charismatic characters. They know how to perform, put up a great show, and they know how to sell themselves basically. Great at selling themselves. The dark side is that employees with this trait or this dark trait of self-obsession will be interested in creating disruption in different ways so that they remain the center of attraction. They are not open to others' opinions or views on their work. For them, every work that they do is final and not subject to any alterations. Dramatizing. People with this trait indulge in overthinking and love connecting dots between different incidents. So overthinking and connecting dots between different incidents. The bright side is that they are capable of thinking ahead and have a long-term vision. The dark side is that they need appreciation to be motivated enough to finish their tasks. So they need appreciation. So self-obsession. So someone with a healthy level of self-esteem would accommodate critical feedback and work on themselves based on those feedback, or at least provide reasonable arguments. And someone who is conceited will just refuse to acknowledge his flaws. Attention seeking. Someone who has a healthy level of attention seeking would keep realistic expectations. Someone who is an attention seeker would demand unwavering acceptance for any work done. Give me a second. And someone who is a dramatizer will react strongly to lack of appreciation. Whereas someone who has healthy levels of engagement with reality, would intrinsically be motivated intrinsically. So that's the pie chart, the table. And number 3, the third dark trait would be insensitive. Insensitivity is a dark trait that tells us how people are affected by their surrounding environments, as well as how much empathy they are capable of showing. Strength is resilient, confident, good at dealing with strengths are resilience, confidence, good at dealing with difficult situations. Weakness are inability to connect and understand the need of the customer. So famous insensitive people are Adolf Hitler was insensitive towards the Jews and saw their extermination as collateral damage for Germany's progress. So there are 3 categories of insensitive people. The first one is logical, second is inconsiderate, and the third is callous. So logical people are not impacted by their surroundings in a way that will impede their judgment or tasks at hand. They take a neutral view on things and weigh the pros and cons in every situation before letting their opinion be known. Bright side is that good decision makers who are capable of taking hold of tasks that are sensitive in nature, they become good decision makers who are capable of taking hold of tasks that are sensitive in nature. They do not let their emotions get in the way of execution, and do what is right even if it goes against the popular opinion. So the dark side is that, or rather than do what's right, they do whatever it takes, to get the job done, to get their goals achieved, to achieve their goals, even if it goes against popular opinion. So dark side is they are orthodox and do not accept any opinion or suggestion that goes against their own belief system. They have a set frame of mind and a thorough process which cannot be changed under any circumstances. So very set and rigid, stubborn. So number 2 is inconsiderate. People with this dark trait tends to be oblivious towards others' needs. They tend to focus on their own tasks irrespective of how it impacts others. The bright side is that employees with this trait are good at following rules without asking any questions. They remain unaffected by office gossip or criticism. They do not get hurt easily by others' actions or words. Dark side is that employees with this trait are not likely to be team workers, as they cannot take others' opinion or comfort into account. Carelessness. Careless is a trait that makes people very indifferent to any activity happening around them. They do not get affected by comments or judgments. The bright side is that careless employees are good at handling difficult situations without getting argumentative. Dark side is that they are amused by others' misery and do not make attempts to resolve any conflict. Amused by others' misery. Carelessness. So, insensitivity. A healthy level of insensitivity would be prejudiced opinions, right? Prejudice based on objective reasoning, or maybe reasonable analysis, or based on your own personal what do you call that, personal judgment. So if you're insensitive, if you have an unhealthy level of insensitivity, then it would be when you prefer rational decision making even if it hurts others. And a healthy level of what do you call that, indifference, would be when you are sympathetic but not overly involved. Whereas an unhealthy level of indifference or inconsideration will be unaffected by others' emotions, completely cold and detached, 100%, like no emotion at all, no conscience, no empathy. No empathy, rather. No conscience is carelessness. Carelessness is when you're empathetic. When you have no carelessness, you're empathetic. When you are careless, you revel in others' misery. You thrive in others' misery. Temperamental. Temperamental people are very sensitive to their surroundings and get impacted by opinions of others and the environment that they are in. The strength is that they are considerate of others' feelings, and the weakness is that they have unstable moods easily provoked. Famous temperamental people: Vincent van Gogh, easily hurt and demotivated by others' take on his paintings. Very often got into fights with his critics. So temperamental traits have 3 variants: assertive, volatile, and violent. Assertive people are thoughtful people who put their opinions across in a way that seems reasonable. They believe in letting their thoughts be known and accepted without getting aggressive. So the bright side is that they are good mediators and good at conflict management, as their opinions are logical. The dark side is that they are prone to becoming dominating if their orders are not followed through. Volatile. Volatile people are generally open to others' point of view. They are not rigid in their thoughts and tend to change their opinions very often. Bright side is that they are open-minded and make good team players. The dark side is that they are indecisive and their judgments are easily molded by situations around them. Their decisions cannot be trusted, and they cannot be blindly trusted to follow through any task without guidance. So that's volatile. So unstable, basically. So violent people wear their emotions on their sleeves and are deeply impacted by their surroundings. Their behavior is completely controlled by reactions from others. The bright side is that they are sensitive towards others, and the dark side is that they are easily provoked without having any valid reason. So temperamental. If you have a healthy level of assertiveness, you would be easily influenced by others. Or rather, that's quite unhealthy as well. Easily influenced by others is when you have is on the other opposite spectrum, the other opposite of the spectrum, which is probably codependency. And if you have an unhealthy on the other end of the spectrum is when you impose your opinions on others and force them to accept your belief. Volatility stays when you are when you're not volatile, you stay calm under stress. When you are volatile, you have frequent anger outbursts. And violent, you're right. When you're violent, you're provoked without reasons. All right, and when you are sensitive, you are easily hurt by others. So impulsiveness. Impulsiveness is a trait that makes a person display impatience. It urges a person to act without worrying about consequences. The strength is quick decision making. The weakness is rash decision making. So famous impulsive people are Princess Diana, eccentric and free-spirited in her actions. So impulsiveness have three variants: spontaneous, careless, and rash. Spontaneous people are quick at taking on a new task and venturing into unmet territories. They are quick in arriving at conclusions. So they are quick in arriving at conclusions. The bright side is that they are fast learners and good at picking up new tasks. They are creative and quick thinkers. The dark side is that they do not think through their decisions and judge others too soon. They like tagging people and creating perceptions without having sufficient knowledge about a person or situation. So, careless. A careless person are free-spirited and not particular about how people or things should be. They are uninhibited and not bothered by success or failure. Bright side is that they are easy to work with and not demanding. The dark side is that their lax attitude makes them unreliable. They cannot be counted on to deliver quality work or follow rules stringently. So unreliable. Rash people are very crude and not very particular about quality or guidelines. They handle situations as they come without taking too many things into consideration. Bright side is that they are very easy to get along with and not controlling. The dark side is that they are neither capable of taking wise, calculated decisions nor capable of supporting their decisions or actions. So they are neither capable of taking wise, calculated decisions nor capable of supporting their decisions or actions. So if you are not impulsive, you would be able to think through any situation, right? You would be able to take it slow and think it through before acting. And you would be guarded and cautious towards things to a reasonable level. And you would plan, monitor, and control things. And if you are impulsive, you would jump to conclusions. You would have a casual attitude towards things, towards life, and you would act without caring about consequences. Sorry, you would jump to conclusions. You would be casual. You would have a casual attitude towards life, and you would act without caring about consequences. And thrill-seeking. Number 4 is thrill-seeking. I think that's number 5. Oh no, that's the last one. Yep, thrill-seeking or sensation-seeking. So thrill-seeking is a trait that delves into risk-taking ability of a person. It tells us how comfortable a person is dealing with It tells us how comfortable a person is in dealing with new or groundbreaking methods. The strength is that they are open to new ideas, broad-minded, adventurous, and out of the box thinker. Weakness is that they are uncalculated risk takers. So famous thrill seekers are Elon Musk. Jumped from one successful venture to another without getting too elated by any one venture, which allowed him to try different industries and excel in different fields. Thrill-seeking traits have three variants: excitable, adventurous, daredevil. So people with the excitable trait seek new ways of doing things and are always ready to try and experiment things. Are always ready to try experimental methods. Bright side is that they are good at inventing new methods of doing things and are not driven by inertia. They are always ready to experiment and try a fresh perspective on things. Dark side is that they get bored by routine. The dark side is that they get bored by routine work and cannot be expected to stick with mechanical roles which do not provide them with an avenue to try new things. Adventurous. These adventurous people look forward to tasks that allows them to find their way after venturing into a new task. They like unpredictable situations. The bright side is that they are ready to take challenging tasks and try untested methods that may or may not work out. The dark side is that they do not calculate how going off track can impact a task and its results. They do not calculate how going off track can impact a task and its results. Daredevil. These people like experiencing a rush of adrenaline in any task that they undertake. The bright side is that they take on risky ventures without getting too bogged down with the return on efforts. The dark side is that they tend to use methods that are not mainstream, as they have a higher risk component attached to it. They tend to use methods that are not mainstream as they have a higher risk component attached to it. They do not weigh their choices based on effectiveness rather than on the thrill. Rather, they base it on the thrill element attached to it. So how much thrill they can gain from that venture, rather than how effective the attempt is. So if someone has a healthy level of risk taking, they would like routine. They would be conservative in choices, and they would prefer tried and tested paths. Or rather, someone who is careful. Someone who is careful likes routine. Someone who is careful is conservative in choices and prefers tried and tested paths. Someone who is on the safe side. Someone who is thrill-seeking, loves novelty-seeking, likes the unusual, and taking high-stakes risks. So that's all for the 6 dark personalities. I hope you found that helpful. So we have thrill-seeking, impulsiveness, temperamental, insensitive, and self-obsession, and also opportunism, or opportunity seeking. So that's all for this session. I hope you find that informative in some way. So after this, I'm going to dance therapy immediately. You can join me or you can watch it later, but that's all for this session. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you find that information helpful, and I'll see you in the next one then. So we have live streams on. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue doing live streams if nobody's if it doesn't get much views, then I might just go ahead and just continue with my non-live stream videos, which are more prepared and planned for, and more informative in a way, because I will be sharing not only my thoughts but also my material and other resource material as well, other research materials as well. So I think I might not do much live streams if there's not much viewers in the future, but let's just see. Over the next week I won't be doing I will still continue doing the live streams for my patrons for this book that I just mentioned, The Dark Side of Personality. But other than that, I might be less active with live streaming because I want to do more planned videos. I want to post more planned videos and edit more proper videos for my YouTube channel, and I want to make more books as well, ebooks. So yeah, that's kind of my plan going forward. But anyways, so we have the dance therapy session after this. If you want to join me at Patreon, same link, same place, in like 10 minutes time. So that's all for today, and have a nice day. Stay mindful, peaceful, and powerful, and have a lovely day. Bye. I mean, see you shortly if you want to join me.